And I'm going to start the meeting. So welcome to the August 18th meeting of the Bristol Planning Commission. It 18th, 2020 with the Bristol Planning Commission. It's 7:04. And the first thing on our agenda is see if there's any adjustments to the agenda, any items anyone wants to talk about. I don't have any adjustments. So is there anybody else who has anything?
Nope.
Okay, seeing none, we're going to go to review and approve minutes. And I have the minutes from August 4th, 2020. Was everyone get a chance to look at them? Would anyone like to make a motion?
Make a motion, we approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, seeing none. All in favor of approving the minutes for August 4th, 2020, say aye.
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 Okay, great. Minutes from August 4th, 2020 are approved. We do not, well, actually, next item is administrative matters. And then we are going to move to the Bristol Municipal Plan. And Andrew's going to take over at that point. I would like to just go over kind of the strategy of moving this plan forward. I was talking to Valerie today, and well, let me back up a little bit. We had hoped to kind of basically wrap up the plan tonight, with the exception of, no, I'm looking for my outline of that. Hold on a second. Okay. To basically kind of wrap up or discuss any of the big issues that we need to talk about tonight, and make a motion to move the plan forward towards a public hearing. What I didn't realize, and Valerie told me, is that we can do that without approving the plan. So we can move the draft forward to a public hearing. We can wait until the public hearing to actually approve the plan. So that gives us a whole month to fix, unsubstantive, I know I was going to say it wrong, issues like formatting, tweaking in language, issues that don't change the concept of the plan. So if we can get to that point tonight, that would be great, because that would enable us to move forward to a public hearing and then approve, if we do, at that public hearing on September 22nd. So to have a public hearing on September 22nd, it needs to be warned this week, which we actually have a warning, but they're not going to go ahead and publish it until after tonight's meeting. If we can't do that, it's just going to get tighter and go into Christmas and January. And that's just the situation. We would have to have the select board hearings, if we get that far, would have to then happen in mid-December and January. And it's harder to do it then because they're working on preparing themselves for town meeting. So that's just what it is. That shouldn't affect what we do tonight. But we do still have time to clean things up, to get things, make things consistent, to, do all that little nitty gritty stuff, but we want to make sure we have the big conceptual stuff correct by tonight. I mean, if something comes up and we need to change something big conceptual, then we'll just deal with it then. So I just wanted to outline that time frame. So I am going to hand it over to Andrew, and he has okay. You're going to share your outline of sorts, or are you just going to go through it?
I was just going to go through, and I mean, most of it is what you just covered for scheduling, and then we can move into the implementation section if that works. Did you already make me a co-host?
Yep.
Okay. So hi, and thank you for joining us, Kristen and Carolyn. I don't know if you guys have all met each other already, but hopefully this can provide some cross-pollination. So I did the natural resource section and the implementation actions to the Conservation Commission to get some feedback. And they provided several pieces that we'll talk about as we go along. And so basically wanting to keep them in the conversation, because the grant that is basically funding this is primarily focused on adding the forest block section to the natural resources chapter, and then also the flood resilience section, both of which are parts that I know there's a lot of knowledge on the Conservation Commission there about, and several of the implementation actions, as you may have seen, correspond to working with them to do various things. So I am glad you guys are able to join us and can chime in. There's some parts that we should probably discuss in terms of inclusion in the plan, but we can get to that shortly. So if it works, I'll do a screen share. And I think the way we've got this on the agenda is to start with the implementation section, basically just pick up where we left off. And then we'll revisit some of the sections and maybe start with the natural resource section after we get through implementation. And we can address some of the comments from the conservation folks before we move on to other things. So if that works, then we'll figure out how to share my screen. And thank you to Kevin for sending some comments. Let's see if
I'm glad you think there's a thank you in store for that.
Well, it tells me that you read it, so I appreciate you looking at it. All right, so can you guys see a screen with an Excel chart? Katie, blink once for yes.
Yes.
Okay. So we last time got through the transportation section. So I've graded those out. Kevin, I believe Kevin sent a suggestion, I believe, for the first goal or the first action in the education section. He pointed out I was missing a word. So in determining, or no, it was on the school district school board. So number 2 was missing a whatever figure of speech the word on is. And then I think you had a suggestion, Kevin, about whether it should be a new recreation center or we should hold open the option of renovating. So if, did you have suggested language for that? Either for a new or a renovated recreation center?
Yeah, I just, yeah, I'm not sure how to word it, but I don't think, if you say new, it could mean you redo that building to a new condition. It could mean you're building something entirely new. And I think we should have some flexibility to renovate as well as construct new. So I don't know if you want to say new or renovate or new or retrofit or improve.
New or improved? No.
I would say new or renovated. They're definitely talking about new right now, but you don't know what's going to happen. or at least the last time I heard them talking about it.
All right, are folks in agreement? I'm gonna see if I can all do it at once.
Good with
The
that.
title of that, recreation and healthy living, does not match with the section.
Okay,
Sure, is this going to be changed to match what's currently in that?
I think, Katie, do you remember?
What was the comment? I didn't hear you.
The chapter heading is called recreation, and we've got recreation and healthy living. I think that we updated the chapter, so it's recreation and healthy living.
We did. I did. I maybe we didn't update it on the.
Yeah, the one that's on the server that you sent out, Andrew, is just recreation.
Okay, I can make sure that gets corrected. All right, did folks have any other comments on, Kevin, I think those were, hold on, I can pull yours up. The only ones that you had on the ones we had done before. Did anybody else have comments or think about ones we covered last week that we need to revisit? Population housing, scenic, historic cultural resources, municipal facilities and lands. I'm just going to read these. Somebody stop me if you want to do something. Economic development, education and childcare, recreation and healthy living, utilities and facilities, and transportation. All right, well, I can't see all of you, so if somebody wants to stop me, you may have to speak up. Oh, wait, I think I can change it so I can see all of you. All right, so energy, the enhanced energy plan obviously has a lot of things embedded in it, and we did not want to bring all, I think it was 20 of the potential actions into this chart just because it would overwhelm it. So if, well, we can kind of go through. So we basically have an overall one and then the main sections. So to work to implement conservation and efficiency policies as described in the Enhanced Energy Plan to help meet the state's 2016 Comprehensive Energy Plan targets. This is basically the whole point of the Enhanced Energy Plan. So this would basically be a joint effort by the Select Board, Planning Commission, and Energy Committee. And I think the rest of them are all assigned to the Energy Committee. Oh. Bill? Maybe? Nope.
I have a question. Didn't the state update the energy plan in 2018, or am I off base here?
That was regional planning.
Oh, that was regional.
Madison County Regional Planning got the regional energy plan approved
Okay, so never mind.
in 2018.
Got
Yeah,
it.
I don't think
Okay.
they've revised the comprehensive energy plan since 2016.
People can use their, their, what do they call it? Reactions, raise your hand or whatever. You would be able to see that, right, Andrew?
I think so.
Okay.
All right. So the 2, 3, 4, and 5 are basically to carry out the implementation actions that are listed in the 4 different sections of the energy plan. So the thermal pathway implementation actions, the electricity pathway, transportation pathway, and land use, renewable generation, and transmission pathway. So those we went through a fair amount, but it's been a while. But I think we kind of hashed through most of them. And then the last one is basically updated from the last plan, but to maintain current energy resources and information on the town website. And that would be a duty of the Energy Committee, which I think they already do. So are there any comments or suggestions on energy? Hearing none, Going once, twice. Okay. Cool. Oop. All right, public health and safety. Oh, I guess because I'm screen sharing, maybe I can't color these. So these were ones primarily pulled from the local hazard mitigation plan. We don't have a whole lot of specific policies in the public health and safety chapter, but basically to update and implement the local emergency management plan, which is required annually, and the local hazard mitigation plan, which is a 5-year sort of broader plan dealing with sort of all manner of hazards. The local emergency management plan is really just a contact list that the state asks us to keep updated so that they know who to call and everybody else can stay in contact. So if that works for everybody, we'll keep going.
Yep.
The second or the next 3 are pulled from the local hazard mitigation plan. So they're basically actions that were specifically recommended, and it's good to have them basically cross-listed. But if there are questions or concerns, we can definitely adapt them or change the specifics. So the fire department maintaining its fire department ISO rating through testing and training activities. Chris may be able to speak to this. I'm sure this is something that they're already doing. And if you'd rather not have this as an action in the plan assigned to the fire department, I think it could be in there. I mean, it's recommended in the hazard mitigation plan. I think it's something that's already being done.
Do you want to define ISO?
Yes.
Sure.
I'm just asking, I don't know.
Yeah. The ISO is the organization that does insurance ratings for
Yeah.
property insurance in the community.
Yes.
And depending on where you live and how your fire department is manned and what it has capabilities,
Equipment.
your rating can either, like ours is, I think, in the 4 range right now, which is great for the village. Get in the upper notch, it's a 9 or a 10, which is the worst. And that's just because of distance from fire department and things like that. But we work on a regular basis to make sure that we meet their training requirements. They come down, they do a whole pile of testing with us and to keep that number. And we actually just had a small incremental drop this last year. So it saves the taxpayers every time we do it.
I agree with Bill. I'm familiar with the term, so with my penchant for acronyms, I breeze by it, but we should spell out what it is. It's like insurance services something or other, but
Yeah, Insurance Services Office, which is a independent organization.
right.
I have a comment about that. The statement ahead of it says we're going to update and implement the local emergency management plan. So implementing it would be maintaining the fire department ISO, wouldn't it?
Yeah, so it might be more specific. And
Maybe we don't need it in there because there's a lot of other things we would be doing. I don't know. It's a thought.
Or we could just take out ISO, maintain fire department rating through testing and training.
Great.
Anybody have issues with that?
Do we need the redundancy if they are in the hazard mitigation plan? Do we need the redundancy of having them here? Do we need them as filler for this section on our plan? Is that why, or?
Yeah, it was looking a little thin with just one, but if we want to have it just refer to the other plan, I think that's fine too.
The other option too is to somehow call out all of the emergency services. So you add fire, EMS, and police under your public safety option here.
Right. So you're saying to add actions for them or to add them to this one specific?
You could remove the ISO one and somewheres along the lines maintain a
Emergency response. Or-
Yeah, an active emergency services environment throughout the community.
I'm thinking that is in the policy, though. The implementation,
These
I
aren't
think, is a
posted.
very specific project. I mean, we don't have to, we discussed this before, we don't have to have something under each section just to have something. Because they are very specific tasks. If you go to the public health and safety section, we say what you just said, Chris, I believe, I'd have to go look, but I would think that we would
Yeah, I
say
think
we
that's
support and maintain
the
all of those
policies.
departments. But we don't have, I mean, these are tasks that need to be specific. And we went kind of back and forth on that last time as well. But I mean, that's just my take on it.
All right, so I'm kind of hearing maybe at least remove the middle two. And I don't know, this last one is also a feasibility study for protecting the village spring. I don't know if that's been done. That was in the last hazard mitigation plan, but I don't know if that was also carried over, or how critical that is.
Do you know if that was done, Chris? Does anyone know if that was done?
Nope.
Okay.
Is there a way in from the chair?
Me? I weighed in.
Your way in?
I don't know. I mean, I think conduct a feasibility study is very specific. I think that should stay in unless it's already been done. If we're carrying, we don't want to, but we'll find out when this goes to the select board. So, but that's different from just, I mean, installing dry hydrants throughout the town. I don't know. Is that something that?
So those are the little pipes that you see.
No, I know.
I don't know what the status is for Bristol. I assume that most places are probably pretty well covered, but Chris is shaking his head no. And as the tank driver, I assume he probably knows.
Yeah, I mean, we try to install, we apply for grants every year. As it is, I mean, we're installing one in the upper notch this year. We try to do them on a regular basis to increase our fire coverage. But is it a task? No,
That's
probably
definitely,
not.
yeah, I would think so.
Nope. we just got cross opinions there.
Oh,
Um,
I don't know. Chris, Chris would know. I don't know.
I guess my impulse would be to take out those middle two and then do more research on the last one. And if simpler is better and we're already referring to things that are in the local hazard mitigation plan, then we go with that.
How about we see a show of hands? Who agrees with that?
Oh, not Rob.
What do you think, Rob?
Simplify?
Simplify.
Okay. Then we're going to take out the middle two. And if the last one has been done, then we'll get rid of that one too.
So this is Jeff. If you're talking about specific tasks,
Yep.
there's actually one that the town has just started last week or 2 weeks ago, which is a examination of the police department, what type of police department the town wants, or even if it wants one at all. That's already started 2 weeks ago. I don't know if that's something you would want to add here.
How would we continue examination or?
Well, I'm not sure what wording they're using for it, but it's an examination of the role of the police in Bristol, or the type of policing. I don't know. You'd have to get some, I don't know what the specific, I can't remember what the specific language was that was used, but this is a process that was started 2 weeks ago through an open meeting.
Right.
And that's quite specific.
Is it an assessment and of the needs of the community? Or is it survey?
Yeah, I can't remember. I mean, we can find out the exact
Right.
wording.
And right now they're having public meetings.
There has been at least one public meeting. That was the day before our last meeting. I haven't heard about one since then, but perhaps I've missed it.
Is this to examine the need for our own Bristol Police Force, or is this to examine how the police force in Bristol is acting?
I believe it could do both.
I don't think acting, but maybe the composition of it. Is that correct? Or is it actually procedure?
I don't know the exact formulation.
Maybe it's just a continue review of Bristol.
Or is this the ongoing debate of whether there should be one, if everybody in the town should pay for it, and if they should cover the town or just the village, yada,
Well,
yada, yada.
it's not doing the town and village part.
Yeah, I think it's beyond
about
that.
what type of police, what type of policing the town, the village wants, and if it wants a police force at all, or whether it should just, as Brandon has done, use the state police and the sheriff's department. I think you don't need to get that specific. But I mean, I can go back and not right now, but then look at the wording, if I can find it, of what was said previously, and make a suggestion for it.
I think maybe if we reference it here. And then we could get the wording straightened out.
I think that's sensible.
Because that is important. I mean,
I
well,
think
we're not really continuing it, but we're basically we're supporting, and not to use that word support again, but
I think the word needs, community needs, should be reworded somehow, because that's pretty subjective based on who shows up for these informationals and who doesn't, and what happens next week and all that kind of stuff. I think it should have something more about community input or community opinion.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Maybe something to the effect of desire for local police services, or something to that effect.
or the structure of the, well, it might not be police, but the structure of the organization, if you don't want to use the word police, it's the law enforcement. That's what they're thinking about.
Continue to survey community input on the need and type of police force, or something like that.
We just
You
took
can't add the word need back.
We just took need out, and police.
But I need it. Okay.
And we're not, well, the select board, okay, the select board is doing it. Continue.
The select board would be doing it.
Right.
To find something about it, but I can't find it right now.
I don't know. Does anybody else have a window? Because the sky is like bright yellow outside.
It's raining in Bristol.
Raining.
Yeah, it's raining here
It's
too.
pouring here.
Okay.
Downpour.
Continue review.
All right.
How
I
about
think
something
that's a good
just like,
start. That's a good start.
Oh, Bill.
yes, how about something along the lines of re-examine the purpose of our police force and how best to achieve that purpose?
Sounds good.
Yeah,
That sounds pretty good, Bill.
Thank you.
I'm gonna need you to repeat it though, so I can type it.
Examine the purpose of our police force and how best to achieve that purpose.
I like it. It goes back to fundamentals. I think the select board could probably do that in 3 years. Does that
The
seem
ongoing.
Yeah, let's just give it that. That's a good one.
Well, it's current, so.
Yeah.
Now, before we move on, I've been taking a look at the energy section, which we mentioned a few minutes ago.
Yep.
It seems like there's an awful lot embedded in there from the enhanced energy plan with fairly strong language like implement and carry out. I think we need to know more carefully what's embedded, what pathways for transportation, for what else have we got?
would it
Renewable
be
generation, land use, transmission. These are all fairly significant terms, and we just have we just incorporate by reference. And I don't know that everybody is aware just how significant that is. So I'm either suggesting we have to get more specific, or we add a qualifying term to the list of actions, such as the word reasonable. If you want strong language, carry out, implement, instead of consider or encourage or promote, something less strict and inflexible.
could you say something like work towards achieving?
That's I think getting there. Yeah, I think that's a reasonable compromise.
Which number are you looking at here, Bill?
I'm looking at all 6 of them as best I can tell. The verb in each one, Bill, well, 5, the first 5. The verb in each case is very strong and inflexible. Implement or carry out. And since I don't have in mind the particular actions that were embedded in the enhanced energy plan, I'm a little uncomfortable with such inflexible direction. So I think Andrew had an idea for something that would.
If it, and I can also do this on number 1, but if it was something like work towards achieving.
How about if we said work towards achieving the goals of the energy plan?
Yeah, that's a good compromise.
And then just have one
That'd be fine with me.
task. Because then it gets into details. I mean, that's taking them all and making it one, with the exception of 6. That'd be okay?
That'd be okay with me. It's a good compromise.
So taking out 3 through 5, basically. Or, I mean, the first one is to implement policies. So just combine that. So work towards achieving the goals described in the enhanced energy plan to help meet the state's 2020 or 2016 comprehensive energy plan targets, and then take out the rest.
Well, I don't think you have to take out the rest.
But they're repeating, they're all goals.
Yeah. Sorry.
And they're all in the energy plan, which is
Right.
attached to this plan.
All right, cool. So we got 1, 2, and 3 then. We end up with 1, 2, and okay.
So give me an example of a conservation and efficiency policy that might be disturbing to some people.
Well, some people can't afford to insulate their homes the way the state would like.
That's a good example.
Whoa.
So how about if we just, as a compromise, instead of work toward?
That's what we got. No? Oh, okay. I got you.
It could also be well, going back to having an overall implementation, one falls under two, doesn't it? If you just say work towards achieving the goals of the enhanced energy plan.
Well, I think so, but either way is fine with me.
I mean, there's a lot of goals about conservation, education, a lot of different things.
Yep.
I think it looks
Andrew and I already talked about this.
You got me down from 20 to 6 already.
I know, I already got them down.
I think it's fine the way it is. It's very comprehensive and it's straightforward.
I think it may be a little repetitive, and it could probably be combined to be work towards achieving goals and policies of enhanced energy plan to meet the state's, comprehensive energy plan, and put it just into one.
So basically that, and take out number 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right.
So
Katie, you got 20 to
my
2.
only question on that would be that would have to be an ongoing, right? Because isn't the state targets out to 2050? So 5 years is not really realistic.
You don't think they're going to solve it in 5 years, Chris?
I don't think they're hitting it by 2050, but hey, we'll keep dreaming.
The select board is going to buy everybody an electric car.
Hey,
Excellent.
I'm going to move to Bristol.
All right, are we
We're
done
not
with
going
that?
anywhere, so.
We're
I
done
think
with
so.
that?
Yes. So, so the next section is the natural resources and forest blocks, and I'm not totally sure what the best way to do this. There were some comments from the Conservation Commission. I don't know if you guys want to chime in here, or as we go through these, if you have opinions on some of them, if you'd like to give those. Carolyn, I don't want to put you on the spot.
No, it's fine. Yeah. We received a document like this from you with the natural resources and forest blocks text. Yep. And then we talked about this at our meeting on Thursday and went through the language and made some suggestions for a few things. And it looks like those edits have been made. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I went ahead and added them here. And then this last one that's in gray, the ones that have the BCC are on the right. Okay. You can see in the comments. And then the last one is one I want to talk to you with the whole group about as sort of a compromise for some of your comments to the main section. So.
Okay. And then we had sort of a major concern, I think, about river corridors that we wanted to talk about as well. And Kristen's really the expert on that topic.
Yes. So that would be in the flood resilience section. So those are at the moment sort of separate sections in the document. So okay. If you want to hold that thought. And
I just want to make sure that's sort of what we wanted to talk about. That's all.
Yep. So that being said, so moving this one, geomorphic assessment for setback requirements, I think we had said to move, but I may have to check that. So most of these, I think we actually went through these when we did the section of the natural resources plan.
Yeah, that was several
That was-
meetings ago.
But yeah, but that was before we had sort of separated out actions from the rest of the list.
Now, once again, you got to apply the findings now. We don't know what the findings are, or what they're going to cost or so forth. Is that going to tie us into something that we might not be able to do?
So this would be one to move to the flood section, but if there were ways that we wanted to rephrase this, we could do that.
What does the geomorphic assessment specify as to setback requirements?
I would have to turn that over to Kristen, who is our geomorphic assessment expert.
Hi, Kristen.
Hi, Bill. How are you?
I'm hanging in there. Don't be too rough on us.
I'll try not to be. We had some discussion about this implementation action in our Conservation Commission meeting because we felt like it might have been a holdover from earlier times when we didn't have as much geomorphic assessment information available. And we also, I should know this, but maybe Chris Purley can confirm. I thought that we had setback requirements already established in the town, so it felt like a somewhat outdated implementation action to us. And I agree with you that it's there's a lot of information that's collected in geomorphic assessments, so this is kind of a very nebulous statement.
Yeah, it's almost an unattainable task.
Right. Chris, do we have setbacks?
Of the actual river corridor, we never implemented the river corridors, but we have a 50-foot river buffer.
Yeah.
It's been there forever.
Setback or buffer? I think it's a setback. So it's like you have to maintain the distance, but you don't have to manage or maintain any woody or riparian vegetative buffer. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
So Kristen, is it your opinion to take that first one out?
Or at least move elements of it into the next section.
Yeah.
Because we do have some thoughts about enabling language for river corridors, but certainly could be removed from this natural resources and forest block section.
Okay.
Well, if it's outdated, let's get rid of it.
Well, it is a carryover.
Yeah.
And we did not have the next section in the last plan.
Right, because
So
it was
that's
all.
why it was in this section.
Yeah. Okay, let's revisit that when we come back to the flooding and get through the natural resource and forest block. So as I go through these, I think you'll probably recognize some of them. I think previously it said to add or to implement public access to New Haven, Baldwin Creek, and Bristol Pond, and we had some discussion about maintaining and improving rather than adding. Does that sound familiar to folks?
Yes, it does.
Oh, good.
You don't want to use the word increase as well to try to increase some of the public access. I know things like the latest purchase by the town down on South 116 is now an increased public access to the New Haven.
Well, that could be one of the improvements. It wouldn't necessarily have to be stated or defined.
Any folks have opinions about adding increase?
So my problem with increase is it can be construed as a developmental limitation. If somebody can make, some outside party could make a case that that particular development shouldn't happen, that because this potential increase in public access could be lost or mitigated. So I like the wording the way it is.
Kevin, would you be fine with if you remove the word existing out of that sentence, and then it would give a little more depth and breadth to it, because then it would be maintain and improve public access to the New Haven.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that.
Yeah.
Folks.
Everybody agree?
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyone disagree?
You better mark me down for that. I think it.
As a
it has the
disagree?
same- Yep, it has the
Okay.
same defect that Kevin mentioned about increase. If you have somebody, theoretically, if you had somebody making use of their own property in such a way that there was less access, then technically somebody could say, smart lawyer could say that's violating the town plan.
So how would you improve it?
No, it's not improving. Well,
It's
that's
the
not-
word, it's the word existing. Bill, I think that is on my, okay, how would I improve the language? I'm sorry, Bill, my
Yes.
mistake.
Yes.
Okay. I put some kind of a modifier in there. Maybe, how about a compromise? We take out the word existing, but add the word strive to.
With what?
Strive to,
Strive to maintain
yeah,
and improve.
yeah. But take out the word existing for Christopher.
Okay, that's good. That doesn't change the tenor of it.
So something like this.
Yep.
All right, you guys are the ones tasked with striving, so
Yes,
Good.
it's on
We like-
you.
we like striving.
And that one is assigned to both the Planning Commission and the Conservation Commission. So you guys, everyone,
They can strive too.
you can strive together.
Yes.
All right. So this next one, the red text was an addition that I think, can't remember if we put it in or you guys suggested it, but to develop a management plan to minimize introduction of invasive species. I have no idea why my phone's ringing. Into Bristol's natural communities on town properties. I think the Conservation Commission recommended that it might be nearly impossible to do that on all of Bristol, which
Yeah.
is, given the knotweed, probably true.
Yeah, we thought it was at least possible that we would be able to develop these plans for town properties, but that just the town in general at large would be it's just impossible, just beyond the scope of what we could do.
So if it's a non-starter, let's take it out.
Well, the non-starter was for townwide, I think.
Yeah.
The properties makes it more manageable.
Right. We already have some management plans for many of the or several of the parks. There's other areas we could, write those plans for. It's just we couldn't do it for private land.
Right.
It would be too large. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's good thinking. I have a question though. Are human beings an invasive species?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Just
Oh,
saying, only some.
Only certain troublemakers, right, Katie?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
I think it's good.
That was just a rhetorical question.
If we're assigning this to the Conservation Commission, is 3 years enough to get a jump start on a management plan?
Kristen, what do you think?
Is 5 years an option?
Yep.
Sure.
Because our numbers are dwindling.
Yeah, 5 would be great.
I think it may go along with the energy plan where it's an ongoing thing, but
We can make it 30 years if you want.
all right. This one this one I think I specifically remember Bill suggesting. Encourage owners of land with rare, threatened, and endangered to contact the state. For
That's a
assistance.
good one, Andrew. What are we supposed to be doing now?
The third one.
Oh, that's a good one, Andrew. Yeah. Okay.
I think you.
Encourage
I think
them.
that's verbatim from Bill Sayer.
It must have been a compromise.
So
You got the word encourage. That makes it reasonable.
but that's actually one of the hangups I have with it, Bill. When it
Okay.
comes to a task, encouraging isn't measurable.
It's more of a policy.
Yeah, it's nebulous. Create a plan to encourage landowners. That's a task. But just to start it with encourage is not a task.
That's a good point, Chris. We had a discussion about how we would do this, and our thought was to produce educational or outreach brochures or events. So, I mean, those events could be the task, or those brochures could be the task that encourage owners.
So you could exchange encourage with educate.
Yeah, or
Provide
develop education and outreach materials to encourage owners of land.
That's very reasonable.
Those are good compromises.
Yeah.
That seemed like an ongoing task for the or ongoing action for the Conservation Commission.
Yes.
All right.
Do you have your own, the Conservation Commission, I'm addressing you guys. I mean, would you like to set it at a certain, I mean, do you have sort of a long range plan of what you want to work towards, or not really, or?
I think we've had a lot of turnover. We've had a lot of people that had founded the Conservation Commission that have very recently left. And so we have very low numbers right now. And so I think we are in the process of sort of finding what we want to do. And we were thinking we could use some of the language from the town plan maybe this winter and start thinking, what are our priorities? What are we going to start doing and focusing on as sort of like the new guard forms with this sort of big turnover that we're having right now.
So it might help when you see one of these things, which is your priority, and put that, say, 3 years. You know, you don't know, if you don't make it, it's okay. But maybe it would help you sort of, you know, plan out your, I don't know, just suggestion. If everything's ongoing, then it's kind of like, where do we start? What do we start with?
Look at these management plans. That's a discrete task that we can do that would be useful.
Okay.
All right. I'm just going to keep plowing through these. So we're
on that one there before we go on, is that, yeah, yeah, to encourage landowners or whatever to bring up their endangered species. Is there any warning on that, or what organizations might swoop down on them and add regulations to what they're doing? I mean, it's kind of a hazardous thing for a landowner to do sometimes.
I think that was the impetus for providing the information to the landowners rather than and giving them the option to do it.
It's not a mandate, it's their choice. It's the Conservation Commission developing the materials for landowners to use if they choose. There's no mandate that says anyone has to do anything, at least not in this.
But is there, once it's there and once it's known, is there restrictions that might go along with these to
Don't know.
protect these species?
Well, Andrew's waiting for me to say something. And we certainly are, Lloyd. Your instincts are good. They could be especially limiting in the Act 250 process. I think it'd be fair, knowing Kristen as I do, that there might be a paragraph in the brochure talking about informing landowners of the potential restrictions on the use of their property. Just so they're fully informed before they make decisions.
Yeah, that might be good because they're, you know, for Act 250 or for, you know, for forestry or agriculture or.
But this is a landowner making a choice to do something, providing them information which allows them to make a choice, which they.
Yeah, and one actually would hope a better informed choice.
There's no.
Yeah, that's what I think they just need to be informed of.
Well, you could change it to develop education outreach materials to inform owners of land with rare, threatened, endangered species on how to contact the state.
Folks okay with that? Rather than encourage, to inform?
Well, you encourage them to
Well,
inform, but that they need to know that certain things come with the benefit of having a rare species or endangered species in your care.
My guess is people who choose to do this probably understand those implications. That's just my, but.
So one of the, I sort of see where the concern's coming is. The concern is if the Conservation Commission shows up at John Smith's house and says, hey, did you know you have the 3-footed sloth living in your back 40? Now are they being identified? So instead of identifying it as landowners with rare species, maybe it's develop education and outreach materials for landowners about rare, threatened, and endangered species, and sort of leave it at that. Because then it leaves it a little bit open, but it gives them a. Does that help some, Lloyd? So it's not calling out the specific landowner who has the threatened species. All people should be aware that there may be rare and endangered species on their land. And if they happen to find it, then here's the steps you should take if you do. But they're not coming knocking and saying, hey, Lloyd, you've got to do act. You should do that now. Your land has been identified, which I think is what the concern is.
If you have to maintain a habitat, that means you don't farm it or develop it or do something like that. Endangered species have.
Yeah, but I think
certain rights.
it's not so much aimed at going out and looking for new rare species as it is making sure the landowners, because if you've got rare and threatened and endangered species, that's going to come up in your, you know, if you're trying to get a permit for Act 250 or other management activities, you're, you know, it's
goes out and look for one, yeah.
True. How do folks feel about informing or taking Chris's wording?
I thought the wording would be good to, whatever it was, to inform as opposed to encourage.
So to inform basically how to contact the state?
Well, is it necessarily only contacting the state, or would there be other avenues?
I think he ended because he asked me about it.
How to obtain assistance in developing a management plan?
You can look at them. I think they should be pretty good.
And if I could interject here too,
Sure.
I don't think we are, as the Conservation Commission, are going to do a whole survey of the town, figure out where the rare, threatened, and endangered species are. I think we're just generally going to be providing information about rare, threatened, and endangered species to all citizens of the town. And if, for those who are interested, here are the resources you can go to find out more. So the wording where it says to inform owners of land with those RTE species, I don't think we're going to be doing that. We're going to be informing the whole town, all citizens of the town about generally rare, threatened, and endangered species and how to find out more information about that.
Like maybe,
And that, oh, I just wanted to say something. All of that information is recorded. I mean, it's all, in our office, we have all the maps of rare and endangered species that were generated. They're, not as specific as it's not a parcel by parcel level of inventory, but it's out there. So it's not so much, is it there? It says if people are interested, how do they manage the property? Am I right, Kristen? It's
Yeah, I mean,
helping people manage the property if they choose to do so, and you have the educational materials.
Yeah,
available.
you're right. That information is all fairly public, and I just wanted to say that we're not going to be targeting specific landowners. We're going to just be informing the broad community about rare, threatened, and endangered species. And if a landowner was interested in more information, we would provide like BioFinder resources and other resources for them to find out more.
Right. So following on that, Kristen, so if you changed it to develop education and outreach materials for landowners about RTEs and how to develop a management plan for these sites.
That sounds good. I think that sounds good.
Yeah, I like that.
Sounds good to me too.
What was the second part there about RTEs?
And how to get rid of the contact state for assistance and change developing to how to develop a management plan for these.
How about properties or sites, whatever, doesn't matter.
If they desire.
We don't want to compel them to get educated, you know?
gets in the way sometimes, doesn't it?
Oh my.
When builders manage the species, that may be a different set of actions than other folks.
Right. Especially those pesky human beings.
Yeah.
All right. Is this okay for now?
Yeah, rock and roll.
All right.
Everyone agree? Is everybody in agreement here?
Good. We're good.
Are you gonna raise your hand, Bill? S?
I'm going to live with it as a
Okay,
compromise.
that's fine. Good. Next.
Work with adjacent towns, local not-for-profit groups, including Bristol Recreation Club and the Watershed Center. Thank you, folks that corrected that. State agencies and willing landowners to develop low environmental impact biking and hiking trails that promote access to natural resource areas.
Yeah, Bill wants to add the Sierra Club in there.
Extinction Rebellion, I think, is one.
Right. Just so you all understand, those of you who aren't chuckling and who don't know me, we do a lot of this already, but we do it voluntarily. That's my big issue, is the landowner should be able to choose to participate. And when he or she does make these decisions voluntarily, in my view, they're much more sustainable.
And we talked about that when we
compelled to do it, Bill. It says, will, I think, but we could change it. I think we should say to compel landowners. How about that?
That's right. And
they have to pave the bike trails and provide watering stations every mile.
That's right.
Okay.
And if they don't, into the stockades they go.
Right. Actually, off with their heads. Come the revolution.
Chris, I think you had a serious comment.
No, it's
So, this one's pretty wordy. I think it's almost too specific. So somewhere's where it could be something along with work with adjacent towns and local and state agencies and willing landowners. Calling out the rec club and or the watershed center specifically just seems you're honing in. If you look at all the other tasks you've done, nowhere else do you call out to this exacting level that you've got here. And it just feels very narrow. I don't know. I think you could reach the same information and not get as detailed possibly.
I agree. I don't think we should call out individual groups because there could be a lot of other ones, and we discuss those individual groups in the body of the text. And
Yeah,
all
I mean,
Great.
but
Is that okay with folks to get rid of that?
is that okay with the conservation people? Guests or guests?
The specific names, that's fine.
You guys will remember who that is, right? If we delete it. Okay, good.
and not the, again, it's just semantics, but the not-for-profit aspect of it, when it says local not-for-profit groups, can it just be local groups?
Sure.
Yeah,
Local
it could be
organizations.
for-profit groups as well. I mean,
I like calling out the local groups, but calling out not-for-profit I think is excessive.
because the Bristol Trail Network is working with Stony Hill, and that's private.
Exactly.
Okay.
Plus, some years the for-profit groups don't make a profit.
That's right.
Many years.
Many years indeed.
All right. So that's an ongoing work. Moving on to the next one, unless there's any complaints. Evaluate opportunities to conserve lands with high natural resource value, especially those adjacent to town-owned land, town-owned or already conserved properties through purchase in fee simple or funding of conservation easements. I think we wordsmithed this one when we did this chapter. But if folks have other suggestions, I know we've got some new folks. Looks okay. I think
Andrew, when you say you wordsmith and you pulled some of these, were these like the goals from out of this section?
yeah, no. So when we this was one of the first chapters we did, and we did goals, policies, and actions. Whereas for the rest of them, we just did goals and policies, and then have been working on actions here.
Gotcha.
This was, I think, after the enhanced energy plan. This is the first one we did. We went through all
Yeah, we worked on this.
ad nauseum.
I think it was when we were in Howden Hall that night,
In the basement, yeah.
in the basement.
Yep.
Got it.
I seem to remember this one. This has got a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in it already.
And we already talked about it. We don't need to talk about it anymore, right?
Let's move on.
That's fair enough. Unless, Katie, you want to change it back to the original language.
I don't know what that was. I like it.
I don't either.
Move on.
So
Someone say something?
yeah, who howled?
Move on.
Oh, okay. Move on.
Oh, is that Bill? B?
Yeah. Okay. So this last one is one that is going to require a little more discussion. So this is from a comment that came from the Conservation Commission, that there needed to be more of a management focus and section in the natural resource chapter of the plan. I don't know that we have the ability or time to do that in a feasible way. So this is my proposal, is that working together, you develop and this may overlap with the invasive species one, but basically to develop a management plan for conservation issues on town-owned properties. And I think some of the ones you guys listed were erosion, dumping, runoff, water quality, trail infrastructure, gravel pits, use of Bartlett Falls, which is a lot. And I don't know that we can address it in an adequate way in this plan. But wanted to give you guys a chance to weigh in on that.
I would like to make one comment on that, and specifically in terms of, well, you have runoff water quality. It's more of the runoff and erosion with stormwater management, and the town has been doing quite a lot of work and did do a stormwater management plan. So I don't know if that, I mean, that seems to look at some of those issues. I would think. I don't know how, but not all of them, obviously. I don't know how the members of the Conservation Commission think about that.
My only input on that would be, I don't believe that developing a management plan for conservation issues is in the purview of the Planning Commission. I believe that if the Conservation Commission comes up with one, the Planning Commission could endorse it, but to actually create that type of a plan is not within the purview or the expectations or even, I think, authority of Planning Commission.
I will defer to Carolyn on this, but this seems new to me. My personal thought would be that we do have it within our purview, and we have, as Carolyn said, we've developed management plans for specific town-owned parks. And my thought would be to address those specific issues for each park within those management plans. Because this, to me, seems like a very broad, I can't myself envision the Conservation Commission writing an all-inclusive management plan for all conservation issues on all town-owned properties. I don't think that's really feasible. But rather, for each individual town-owned property, we could have a specific management plan, and where these issues came up, we could address them in that plan.
So you've done this before for other certain parks.
Yeah, we have one for Sycamore Park.
Right.
The beginnings of one for Eagle Park. We're kind of behind on that. We want to, that's one of our short-term goals, is to have a management plan for each of the town-owned parks.
We could say something like support your work, or coordinate. I mean, there is a crossover. I mean, it's not, say, if Chris, it's not in our purview, but it would be helpful to coordinate, I would think.
Yep.
Management plan. So,
Well, and I
support the development.
As if we hopefully get a chance to look at the natural resource section, I think one policy that was suggested was to basically support and work with the Conservation Commission, for the Planning Commission to work with the Conservation Commission.
Oh yeah, you're right.
So that would somewhat cover this. This is, sorry, Kristen, this is my short synopsis, which is why you haven't seen it before.
Oh, okay.
I think from the emails that you guys sent me.
It's so okay, Randy, maybe.
Yeah, it was.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
It was a mix of.
They've left now, so now we're picking up, and we're like, we don't know what they've sent you either. So.
Oh, good. Well, so we don't have to include this, or we could simplify it and say develop management plans for conservation issues on town parks. I mean, all town properties is maybe out of the question.
Or simply develop a management plan for town parks, because there's more than just conservation issues that we address in those management plans. It's things like, is it dawn to dusk use or not, or are there, you know,
right. And a lot of those things do interface with us. I think it's really important to have that interface way more than we do.
Mm-hmm.
I feel pretty strongly about that. So if we could, if that could be our task, is to interface with, you know, or just I mean, I don't know the right terminology, communicate with, you know, or just, I mean, do we want to say work with? That's a little too, we're not going to all sit down at the table together. It'd be better if we just stay informed on the work that you're doing and we support it. I don't know. How do other people feel about that?
I think that's reasonable.
I think that sounds good.
And make it specific, just say management of town parks.
Yep. Do you want to do just parks or do you want to do property? So
We should
you
say-
could develop individual management plans for town properties.
Town,
Something along those
well,
lines.
not all
Yeah, but you don't want like the
properties.
DPW or
Right. Well, when we think about parks, we think about Sycamore, Saunders, Eagle, Memorial, maybe the Town Green, right? But not Bartlett, not the Coffin Factory Trail, right? So like where you cut off, where it's a park, what's a generic property, would be a recreation site. I don't know how you would word that, but we often struggle with that too. Is like, what is our purview here?
You could say,
and
you
along-
could say recreation areas or town recreation areas, yeah. And then you pick and choose what they are.
And along those lines, I think we should include the Bristol Rec Department as a cooperating member as well, because they're really more, it's more their purview, the day-to-day management of those town parks, or at least I think we're trying to migrate toward that.
Mhm.
Yes, I agree.
okay, folks. Did I hear? I thought I heard a clause potentially added, and I don't know if we want to keep the EG or if it's
I
getting.
would say not, keep the
Or
E.
take that out.
Yeah, again, it's too specific.
Does that work for folks?
I'm still not sure that the Planning Commission should be listed as one of the responsible parties. I could see the Conservation Commission and maybe the Rec Department, but nowhere's in statute do you have the authority to do such a development plan for these.
Well, that ties back into we are not coordinating, but we want to interface. We're not necessarily going to develop it. We want to be in or communicate.
Chris is saying,
It can be implementation of just being aware of it, and coordinating.
But the town plan isn't what the Planning Commission has to do. So if the task is to develop an individual management plan for town parks, the Conservation Commission and the Bristol Rec Department should do it. If the fact that the Planning Commission wants involvement, that's a totally different piece. But you don't have statutory authority to create such a plan.
I know I wasn't saying that. So maybe it's just communicate with the Conservation Commission and as they develop plans for their town parks. I just think it's important that there's our boards in this town do not overlap. They don't interface, and that's just some issue that I have a problem with. So I'm not going to say anything more about it. That's what I'm trying to get across.
Right. So, but your task then should be to create a open dialogue with the additional boards. This particular task, my point is not a Planning Commission task. You shouldn't be on it. But I'll stop there.
Rob.
What do you think?
I was trying to jump in and say that I think that the Planning Commission should not be listed on this task because this is a day-to-day operation type of task, although it's not a day-to-day type thing. Anyway.
Can we just add a clause that's
for better coordination that needs to be addressed in a larger statement somewhere else, and it's just kind of an ongoing goal that we need to have. It can't be determined by listing the Planning Commission on this one topic action here.
I think that's a fair statement, Rob, but at the same time, I think in the interest of Katie's goal, it would be fair to have the Planning Commission involved in setting goals and policies for town property. if there'd be a way of including that in the communication. I think that might be a fair compromise.
But we already do that. I mean, I think we're already doing that in our goals and policies in the body of the text. I'm okay with not having the planning commission on here.
Okay.
I'm okay with that. I guess I was just jumping on the opportunity to actually make a statement that we should be coordinating with other boards.
Could we
Where does that
just
go?
add
We don't have
add a clause
for that.
to share that information? If they have
And
plans, can they share that information with other town boards or committees?
well, everything should be shared. I mean, we should be able to communicate, but there's no category, there's no chapter for that.
I think as is right now, though, right? If we make a management plan, we might put it on our website, but that doesn't mean that you're gonna click around and find it, right? So I like the idea that we would go out of our way to share it with you, and that you would receive that in some way, right? That makes sense, I think.
If you share or present or in some way actively hand it off.
I mean, we could just have an implementation task on here that says coordinate with the Conservation Commission, period, on their work. You know, what does that, or not that we don't already, but we don't really. But we don't, I don't want to hold things up. I was just trying to figure out why I was, pushing that. Rob smiling. I don't want to hold things up.
I was gonna poke the bear and say, if we say that, we need to add it in the energy section and all the words.
Right.
Well.
And we do need to do that more, but where do we say that,
We could say it in the text of the implementation section.
In the introduction to the plan, that's where we say it.
Or there.
I mean.
Or in the epilogue.
In the epilogue. Or the eulogy. Oh, I mean the epilogue.
Right.
Maybe.
All right. I think
mine before yours.
In the interest of time and catching AOC's speech at the convention, we should move ahead. Which I know Bill is itching to do.
I don't want to miss it. She only gets 1 minute, 60 seconds.
It's true.
She's going to say a lot.
Yeah, she can say a lot in 60 seconds. It will be replayed many times, I'm sure.
Okay. Is this our last section?
No, there's one more. Land use and planning.
Oh.
We can do it. And then everything else will be minor changes that we can do in our.
Are we in flood resilience now?
We are moving to flood resilience.
Did we decide on that last item?
Yep.
We
We
did.
decided to keep it simple.
Okay.
No, I think Bill's talking about the one that's highlighted right now, which is the apply the findings to.
Oh.
I see you've got his status removed. Never mind.
Well, that was a question, but yeah, it sounded like we came down on the side of remove this one. Which is why it's
Oh, you're
highlighted.
right. Yeah.
These next three were ones that I know have been in process, but I don't know if they're done. So improving stormwater capacity on Mountain Terrace and East Street. Again, these are from the local hazard mitigation plan. So these were the flooding related items in that 5-year plan. And I know there's been some work or grants applied for, but I don't know the status of them. So
There's been stuff done on East Street. I don't know the extent of it within this realm, and I don't know of anything that has been done on Mountain Terrace, though.
The third one is done, isn't it? Because we did all the work to elementary school.
No, I don't think they did any improvements on Spring Street.
What? Didn't they, those culverts at the top?
Well, there's been the whole thing that was put in 10 years ago now. But there's also talk about doing something on the grade school property about putting some underground injection in.
And
That
that-
hasn't been done.
Right. That's a recommendation from the stormwater management plan.
So
That
I'm really
has-
confused what this really means. If it's something more than what was done 10 years ago, or did that whole thing, when they went from Mountain Street all the way down Spring and North Street, satisfy that requirement?
This was before that, wasn't it, Chris?
I think this is part of the current the latest hazard mitigation plan that we just produced, what, 3 years ago, Andrew?
Yeah, I think it was finally signed off in 2018, but I think it was started a year or two earlier than that.
But it was started after, yeah, it was started after because I was on that committee. It started after all that work was done on North Street and Spring Street.
Oh,
But I'm surprised that the elementary school line is in there because that had already been done. The curb had been put in and that work had been done. I sent this to Valerie several times to get feedback on
Yeah, I did too. Okay, well, if these are ones that I can check on with Valerie, and if they have not been done, we can leave them in. These other ones are also from the next 5, are also from the local hazard mitigation plan. Hey, this one's assigned to the zoning administrator. Participate in the National Flood Insurance Program training when offered by the state or FEMA. Does that seem like something the zoning administrator could do?
Sure.
Oh, good. You think you can do it in the next 5 years?
It's pushing it, but yeah, I can give you 3.
All right.
coffee.
Bill, was that you?
Not yet.
Why wouldn't that be ongoing? Because you would participate in that as offered, which could be next year, it could be 10 years from now.
Yeah, he's probably right.
That just means you have to do it more than once.
I know.
All right, so these ones, again, I don't know enough about your town to know whether these have been done. Stabilize the intersection of Basin Street where it meets Route 17 East Street.
There's still
Yeah.
there's still talk about that. There was a recent plan started on it. No action has occurred. And now there's possible landowner change at the base of it, so it may change the whole scope of it. So it's ongoing, but I don't.
It's been ongoing for 200 years.
Yeah.
I put these questions to Valerie. These are all the things that she should be able to answer.
Yeah,
Right.
So this one is actually underway. This is done. They applied for, and I thought received a grant to do this exploration already.
Yeah, there was a USDA after the Halloween storm, because I went out with the NRCS guy and walked that stretch. So I don't know if updating so it's more than exploring options, or
if they've done it.
So who's they? Is that the town activity, or is that property owner activity?
Select board, correct?
The select board initiated the study to find out what can be done, which would then it would require some landowner involvement. I think all the landowners signed off on it because they were definitely notified, because I did find the landowners and provide that information to the select board recently on this project.
yeah, and I think it's bigger than any one landowner could tackle themselves. So it sort of has to be a town coordination. So is there a language to update exploring the options, or one that we should remove if the options are being explored or have been explored?
You'd almost be better off to swap the stabilize. You could almost get rid of the explore the options on this one and add explore options on the one above it.
For stabilized intersection of Basin Street.
Because they're still in the trying to figure out even how to explore that.
Yeah, I know they haven't done anything there. That's definitely an issue. But it seems like they're moving forward on the second one. We could get rid of that altogether.
Or to implement them, to implement an option, or to consider the most prudent option.
Just
Or just take it out.
I think you could dump it.
That's what got us into trouble in the first place. We'll just dump it over the bank. Okay. Behind the creamy stand.
Along with the old cars that are already there.
That's
With
right.
the cars. Okay. Has there been a study of options for additional bank stabilization west of Mount Abraham Union High School?
No idea.
Is that even flooding related or just erosion?
Might just be erosion.
It is flooding related in the sense that the last time it happened was the 2004 flood, but it was kind of a top-down erosion there. And it was repaired after that event, but this may have been proposed because of ongoing concern for more stormwater runoff erosion.
So my question on this one's the same as the last one is this a town function that's doing this or promoting this, or is this private property owners?
I think this one is going to fall almost squarely on the school.
Well, it's a classic example of the schools at the top of the hill and the problems at the bottom of the hill. Been
Well,
that way
Kevin,
for a long time.
Kevin, look at it this way. If the school fell into the gravel pit, then you could build a brand new school, not have to worry about asbestos.
Well, there was and I probably shouldn't say this, but there was a community meeting not too long ago, and the comment was made is they should get rid of the school and sell the gravel. So,
Yep. Probably could raise the 30 million that way, Kevin.
All right. So I'm hearing take this out.
Take it out.
There's another explore options for bank and ditch stabilization along Upper Notch Road. I know this is a continual problem whenever it storms. I don't know if options have been explored or grants have been applied for.
Not for the flooding. I mean, for the landslide piece that they put the concrete barriers up that failed, what to do next. I know they're out studying that right now.
Is this a select board task or? Okay.
You could just
Yes,
make it not explore options, but just fix. I don't know. What if you do that? Something might happen. Or stabilize bank along Upper Notch Road.
Anybody opposed to assigning that to the select board?
Give it to
Nope. Just keep hauling more gravel up the hill.
Okay. We're closing in.
If they don't like it, it'll come off.
Right.
All right. This one involves the Conservation Commission again. Develop and maintain adequate stream bank buffers and setbacks that recognize the dynamic nature of the New Haven River and ensure additional infrastructure is not added in at-risk areas. Who wants to weigh in first?
So I think since I should say, sorry, it's getting past my bedtime here.
Yeah.
We didn't have the flood resilience section in front of us when we met last week, but Andrew has kindly forwarded that to us in the meantime. So I see there's quite a bit of language in there about river corridors, and they are more effective at preventing losses, fluvial erosion losses, flood losses, than simple setbacks or stream bank buffers. So I think we would like to see language in there, something along the lines of consider river corridor conservation and protection measures to decrease flood erosion losses and increase flood resiliency.
Can I get you to repeat that?
Sure. Consider river corridor conservation and protection measures. To decrease flood erosion losses and increase flood resiliency.
I think I missed a word after river corridor, but
River corridor conservation and protection measures
okay.
to decrease. Yeah, and then the rest of it looks good.
All right. Would the planning commission be considering those? Chris says no.
Yeah, because it plays into the ERAF. I know that you have some discussion in here about an increase in the state share for funding during flood recovery. If the town were to adopt river corridors in their zoning, then we would increase the state share of emergency response funds. So I think that's a planning commission purview, a select board purview.
Now, Kirsten, are you suggesting this in place of the last two items or in addition?
It could replace the last item that says continue process of adopting flood erosion hazard risk reduction strategies.
Okay, but not the one above it?
Develop and maintain adequate. And that one, I think we wanted clarification that there are setbacks already in zoning, and so maybe that one gets revised to maintain adequate setbacks that recognize the dynamic nature of the New Haven River.
Because we already have them.
Because you already have them. You know, we don't need to develop them because we have them.
And where it says, and ensure additional infrastructure is not added in high-risk areas.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that? Infrastructure meaning public investment?
Public or private. I think that's why it's left generic as infrastructure. It could also, yeah, it could be commercial, it could be private, it could be public.
Well, this gets us back to a very old discussion we've had for many, many decades.
Yep.
If we've got an existing enterprise, just to pick a random one, a forest products company in the high-risk area, as a business, you're either growing or you're declining. And if you can't grow, then it's only a matter of time before you decline. And growing means that you will be adding to your buildings or maybe putting up a new shed or storage area. You certainly will be using your land for inventory. And we've always had the principle, the guiding principle, that we do what we can to keep from slowing down the river if there's a flood, but that we don't block the construction of new structures. And I hope we could incorporate that principle into this language. And what we've done over the years, as you know, is we've tried to build in such a way that if there is a flood, the water can keep flowing through, sometimes break through the first floor of buildings.
Mhm.
And or the sheds, the water just flows right through them. If there's inventory there, it takes the inventory with it. I'm not going to say there's no disruption of the flood whatsoever, because of course there is, but we've always tried to minimize that. I'd hate to have language that could be used to block an improvement in the property.
Mhm.
Could I I have a question. When we, a few years back, had a presentation on river corridors, and we had actually a really good conversation. I mean, it was really just an educational. And one of the things that came up was that if you have existing buildings on a property or commercial, that you could construct other buildings as long as you didn't get any closer to the river, or that you didn't reduce the setback from what you already had, say. And I just want to clarify that, and I don't know if that makes a difference to anyone. So if, say, you have existing buildings that with a river corridor sort of overlay would fall within that corridor. So if they were coming in new and there was nothing else there, that would be something that would, not be allowed. But if there's existing development there, you can continue to add to that, as long as you don't reduce that setback anymore. Is that true?
That was my understanding as well of that presentation by DEC, David Rosa, they gave a presentation to our joint meeting. And I am mindful of the existing uses already inside the corridor. I noticed in the flood resiliency section, the policy to evaluate the effect of river corridor protection guidelines on existing homeowners and businesses as part of updates to land use and development regulations. And I think that's why I was suggesting language here that says consider river corridor conservation and protection measures over the next few years. I'm not suggesting that we implement necessarily those river corridor protection measures, but we should have a continued discussion about them and the protections that they offer, but also the impacts to businesses and landowners and private property owners.
Is there a clarification we could add on either infrastructure or at-risk areas that would clarify things? I mean, clearly don't want new residences or public infrastructure, or Kristen, are you saying to remove the first one for consideration of the second one?
I think the previous one that says develop and maintain, I think we could drop develop and just say maintain
Right.
existing setbacks. We might even say that because we do have existing setbacks in the zoning. So maintain existing.
I could live with that as long as we ended the statement after the word river, because I think when you when you consider at-risk areas, some people are going to consider that to be the whole sweep of the flood
Yeah.
zone.
It's in the eye of the beholder at risk.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're saying end it after New Haven River?
Yeah. Even that's risky for us because as you may recall, we lost about 100 feet of land the last flood.
Yeah, yeah.
It's gradually filling back in, but that might take another 50 years.
Yep.
All right. Oh, go
I have
ahead.
a question about how this language is different from what was in the plan you sent us. It says you had the flood resiliency section from July 31st, and under goal 2, you had written, evaluate the necessary steps to qualify for maximum state funding, 17.5% from the Emergency Relief and Assistance Fund. And I don't see that on this Excel sheet. And I'm wondering, how is this different than those goals? Because that 17.5% directly ties back to the river corridor protection.
Right. And that evaluate is probably something that should be in actions rather than policies, as a verb. But it does tie into the same, well, actually the second one down, the river corridor protections are basically the last step for reaching that 17.5%. So the consider river corridor conservation and protection measures would basically feed into that, evaluate the steps necessary.
So that would be a goal that would remain in the text and would also have this action. Is that correct?
I think is it a goal or a policy?
The policy.
Okay.
It
Yeah.
was- oh,
I
yeah,
mean,
it
in
was
theory,
underneath goal
these
2.
these are supposed to feed in directly to those policies, so they are supposed to be connected.
So
Okay,
I can't, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Good.
I can't remember the whole process, but I remember we talked at length about this whole topic and the concern of encroaching on, unreasonably encroaching on landowners. So some of the goals you saw, they may have been revised through the ongoing process to the point that we've gotten here.
I think I sent them the most recent version of it.
Okay.
And I mean, I think we're striking the balance here because obviously what landowners do in a floodplain is going to affect everybody downstream. And I guess if there's a clarification or removal of that clause after New Haven River, my primary concern is generally public infrastructure and residences. But I think recognizing that there is commercial activity in the floodplain, and if there's a way to make it correspond to some of the existing rules about how close it can be to the river, given that Bristol obviously has a long history of industry in that area. I don't know. Do folks have a feeling on this, or? Not at all. I'm seeing blank stares. We're closing in on 9 when everyone has to go. So
We are. You're going to have to delay AOC's speech. I think the other point there's a couple more points I'd try to make quickly. One, if you look at how much the river spreads out as soon as it hits the flats, over hits the Lathrop property, just as it gets beyond the bridge. It spreads out so much that adding a little bit here and there to that forest products company has almost an infinitesimal effect on the volume of water going downstream. Secondly, I haven't done it since we had the presentation by the fellow from Waterbury, but the incremental effect on state assistance for us is quite small. in comparison to the potential burden that would put on us, or at least put on some of us, if we had to adopt a strict interpretation of the river corridor protections. I think it's an additional 2.5%, perhaps, at most 5%.
5%.
5%.
12.5%, 17.5%.
From 12.5 to 17.5.
Yeah.
And it's 5% of public infrastructure rehabilitation. Is that it?
Yeah, so basically the FEMA chips in, I think 75%, and then the remaining 25% is split between the state and town. And so every measure you adopt basically increases the state share, but it doesn't get invoked very often.
Right, and that's what concerns me. He pretty much stuck with the extra cost for private sector, not just us, but also possibly private homeowners, for a benefit that would be of questionable degree. If it's $100,000 repair on maybe lower Carlstrom Road, lower Notch Road, I should say, or possibly Hewitt Road, we get $5,000, and basically stop. And the price that gets paid for that is to stop growth and development in the mill. It seems like a high price to pay.
Do you really think that, so the blue line that I'm seeing on this map would be the river corridor line?
Yeah. So the dark purple is the FEMA
Right.
100-year floodplain.
Right.
The light blue, sort of hashed, is the most recent river corridor estimate of the state. So
The light blue? Okay,
So-
help me catch up with you. What's the lavender?
That's
The lavender are small streams that are not included in that.
No, he's talking about the big
Sorry
overlay.
about the
That's
FEMA.
Oh, the dark purple. Yep, that's the FEMA 100-year floodplain, flood hazard area.
The one that goes over to Route 116.
Yes.
Okay, well, you can
On
see.
occasion. On occasion.
On occasion. But some people would say that's all high risk. And you can see that takes in the whole mill.
Right, but it looks like only one structure is actually within the river corridor band.
Yeah, the river corridor conservation and protection measures would only pertain to what's inside that light blue hatched area.
Which is going to get remapped soon, correct?
Correct.
The
So
FEMA.
we don't know what it's going to be.
No, that's
The FEMA one is being remapped.
Yeah.
Purple. Yeah.
Payment, and then of course the river moved a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
So if it were only that one building, actually I will bring to your attention that is one of those buildings where there's virtually no walls in it. I think maybe
The storage.
two sections of it that have walls. The rest, if there's a flood, the water goes right through it.
Well, the rising water that flows across the floodplain, that's one kind of flood damage, and you're mitigating that damage, you say, by having that open story. This river corridor boundary is designed to protect against the erosion hazards that could undermine that whole structure and possibly others. So that's why it's a little bit tighter to the river.
Yeah. Well,
and so anyway, go ahead.
Go ahead. That's all right.
So just looking at it, I mean, I obviously, haven't lived it down there like you have, but that if you were to build new structures, unless you build them within that light blue line, there's no restriction. I mean, other than your basic zoning restriction. I mean, there's no river corridor restriction unless you're going to build structures within that narrower band. And also, but closer than the one that you have there, if I'm correct
Right.
in interpreting that. So you could even do it if it was no closer to the river than the structure you have there. The question is, would you do that? You don't know.
Well, I mean, the whole river, the whole hashed in area, I mean, as I look at that property is, I mean, ballparking, that looks like 10 to 15% of their property is immediately is being affected.
Mhm.
I mean, that's a large chunk, that's a large portion of anyone's property in one shot.
Mhm.
I think, Katie, if the line were right where it is now on the edge of that one blue shade, we could live with that. But that light blue line's going to move as the river moved, and the river moved to the west.
Actually, it would not move. It would be, if it was adopted by the town, let's say, it would be an
Yeah.
overlay district, and it would be static, and you would allow the river to move within that, but it's not going to move. The river corridor is not going to move.
Okay, that's good news.
And certainly if the river, by state law, if the river happened to shift and get close to that boundary, then you would be within your rights and you would be granted a permit to stabilize the river at that corridor boundary, at that light blue boundary.
Okay, well, the western edge of that light blue boundary,
Yeah, correct.
that actually does take in a lot of our green lumber storage area.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, and that's why the action that, as we worded it, was consider.
Okay.
Because
Well, I'm with you on that one.
yeah.
I'm with you. It's the last at-risk areas.
Yeah.
Somebody is going to say that whole floodplain is an at-risk area.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a kind of
Not very well defined.
yeah, and
We were going to take that out. I thought we
Well,
had,
that's what we're talking about.
What about the word recommend? I'm thinking about some of our forest fragmentation discussions and whether we could recommend that additional infrastructure is not added, or if there is something basically to.
I'm more comfortable in dealing with that on forest fragmentation than I am on this particular one, Andrew.
Okay.
Um,
Well, I did my best. I threw it out there.
You did. What
when
did
you
we say in the river corridor area? Going back to Kristen's point that area is not going to move, if I understood you correctly, Kristen.
yep.
And say discourage additional infrastructure in the river corridor area. How about that?
I like that because it doesn't prevent it. And there are times where you can, as Katie was saying, if you're developing to the far side of existing development, there are allowances in that can be made for that kind of structure. So we're not exactly preventing all structures. We're just discouraging. Yeah.
Okay.
And then if we're talking about corridor there, then it kind of, this one and the next one are starting to look pretty close to each other.
Right. And so are folks okay with deleting the last one?
Yeah, the last one is not,
Or you're saying the immediately following one is pretty close?
yeah, correct. And how about consider river corridor conservation protection measures to decrease flood erosion losses and increase flood resiliency and discourage additional infrastructure in the river corridor area?
So just move this clause.
Yeah.
We're combining.
I think that works. I'd like you to read it one more time. You combined the two and picked up the at-risk, or rather, river corridor areas in place of at-risk,
Right.
Right.
and the word discourage.
So I think that defines it a little too, because at risk is pretty vague.
Nebulous.
Yes, nebulous. All right. All right. Are we at a consensus more or less, or have we worn everybody down?
Maybe both.
Is this still on?
I'm good. I'm good with those two.
Okay.
And you were,
Everybody else or not, or?
So we're taking 3 and making 1.
Yep.
Are we getting rid of the last?
Getting rid of this one?
47. I think you agreed to get rid of that one as well, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, I think that was our recommendation. Okay. Oh, no, I don't want that. Okay. Probably we should at least look at land use. We're trying to get it knocked out.
Was the
I actually think
maintain
that I actually think that we might get turned off
Oh,
We might get turned off.
at 9-ish, which it's now.
So were we
I
also
don't know how it
gonna
works because I think it only went 7 and 9, the Zoom. So,
Oh, Kevin has a comment.
So I'm still back on this thing, but I thought we were gonna delete the maintain adequate stream bank line 2 and just end up with a consider river corridor one, or am I misunderstanding something?
I think we just moved the clause.
because those are two different things, correct? One is erosion and one are general setbacks. Is that right, Kristen? Well,
yeah, I mean, you, certainly buffers and setbacks will help with flood resilience. And that's
But
a
I
little
think
bit
we're
separate
trying to
from
lump together
river
the river
corridor.
corridor.
Yeah. One other item was who's in charge, Planning Commission, Conservation Commission. Should Conservation Commission be in the last one? Or
yes, yes. Yeah, I would think so.
In terms with the task then of what we could do to be part of that, is there a deliverable that we could provide you with that would help move this conversation along in some way as we consider the conservation? Or could you just keep us informed of your discussion, and then we can provide anything you want at that time, just something that we could just keep touch base with about?
I feel like that's a good suggestion, and I feel like for the one above it, that Conservation Commission may not need to be involved in maintaining buffers and setbacks.
Yeah, I would agree.
That that's just the Planning Commission.
Yep. And so Conservation Commission will get put in the last one?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, and put it in the last one? Okay. Our That's okay with that? Are we good on flood resilience?
And we're checking on the yellow toned section.
Yeah. So I think we said remove the first one and then checking on the ones that I will check with Valerie, and if they're done, we remove them. All right. So the only remaining one is land use, which we had recommended removing basically most of the existing ones. This river corridor area is, I think, is duplicative, so we can remove that. And then, so that leaves 4. Katie, can we do it? Can we push through?
Have we agreed on removing those top ones as a
No.
group? Oh, okay. I think that was our recommendation. Well,
Yeah.
I guess the bigger question is, if we push through land use and come to agreement on what we should have here in the implementation section, can we then, does everyone then feel comfortable in making a motion to move our plan towards a public hearing? So even though there are some, or are there any other really big issues, if we don't think we can do that, we might as well quit now, you know, because we won't get there anyways. So I'd like to hear from the board on that.
My only question to the board is, has everyone reviewed the plan from top to bottom and feels comfortable with all the sections as they sit and can accurately make that decision?
Well, it's been out
We
there.
just got the last of it today, I think. I know the education and childcare section wasn't posted until right about meeting time, I think. So I don't think we've had a chance to see all of it yet together.
I read through everything that was up in the master plan, and it could be early stages of Alzheimer's, dementia, whatever you want to call it. But there's a lot of stuff there that I don't remember talking about. So, and I did raise 3-4 rather minor issues in a Word doc, but it was a very, very top level, quick review of stuff. And I'm at a quantity of how I go back and try to reconcile why I don't know what's in there, but that's my problem.
I think we need a little bit more time.
Okay. Lloyd?
All right.
Bill?
Yep.
More time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Does that basically push us back to December, January?
Well, every
do
2
it.
weeks is the way, let's, we would still have, we would still have a month to get it figured out, but there might be some big issues that are more than just detailed. So I think we need to, then by the next meeting, everyone, read it top to bottom and get your comments as soon as possible.
How close are we to having it in a combined single document format?
We can do that if that would be helpful. My impression was that it would be good to have it in. We can do it in a combined one. Chris is shaking his head.
Curious. I was trying to go through, and I noticed I was trying to go through and figure out what was missing in that post that you had put up, and knowing that
We can put it together with a table of contents and just have a single draft with dates. I mean, one date for all of it.
And then I can produce it and physically mail it out to everyone as well, so they can have a hard copy and not just have to rely on a digital copy.
Oh, that's
Right.
great.
So you could do that this week, tomorrow.
If you get it to me tomorrow, I can make 12 copies and mail them to everybody who needs one.
Sorry. Tomorrow afternoon.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe. All right.
Tomorrow afternoon might be pushing it because I got 3 meetings tomorrow. What about Friday?
Friday's great. You said I could actually produce them over the weekend and get ready, and then we'll mail them out on Monday.
If we
Okay.
had it this week, I personally would be happy.
Okay.
Well, not real happy, but
I mean, all things considered, and the rest of the world happy, or
Well, so if it's digital by Friday, and then you can make copies over the weekend. When do you want to get it on Friday, Chris, to do that?
Sooner than later, but I mean, I'm working from home all the time, so I'm really always in the office.
Okay.
We can always grow more trees.
Yep.
So let Chris know who wants a hard copy.
I do, Chris.
I'm going to plan on just producing one for everybody. Unless somebody specifically doesn't want one, please tell me no. That is easier than trying to figure out who does. If you don't want one, please email me.
okay.
Okay. So,
I've got one question. The format that the whole one doc is that going to be something that like a Google Docs or a doc document, or it's not going to be a PDF that you can't comment on, is it? Or are you trying to tell me something?
A PDF would be easier, but sure, we can get you a Word version of it, but just for you, Kevin, because you're the one that's going to make the comments.
Why do you think that?
Recent history, not so recent
history.
Yeah, I'll send it in 2 formats. How about that?
Thanks.
All right.
so on that note, I think that we should not do any more tonight, if that is all right with everyone.
When's our next meeting, Katie?
Well, it will be the 1st of September.
Okay.
Let me just
I wanted to say thank you so much for listening to us and letting us be here tonight.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks
Thanks
for
for
having us.
joining us.
It's our job.
Hopefully we can continue to communicate and share ideas between the 2 commissions.
Yep. Thank you. We really appreciate your input. Yep.
Thanks for hanging with us.
So yes, it would be September 1st. And, maybe we could, so I guess we'll just try every time to wrap it up and really, we'll try to, get clarity on the changes, maybe things that were changed didn't get translated or something. So that we all need to work on that together, though. It's not just, it's a group effort here, because we did, part of the issue is that, we had some scope creep, and time is running out for our consultant.
I love you
Time
guys.
has run out for our consultant. So, all right.
All right. Thank you, guys. Oh, I think we have to adjourn or whatever.
Then someone needs to make a motion to adjourn.
so
To
moved.
adjourn.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, meeting has adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Enjoy the speeches.
Katie.